Good evening. This is the book. I will say very briefly. It's not a chronicle. It's not a chronicle of the Donetsk airport defense. I spent only 4 days out of all the period of defense. I saw just several episodes from that defense, but that courage, that the atmosphere, the light of courage which I saw in the eyes of that serviceman, it inspired me very much. I immediately understood that I cannot write down the chronicle because I saw just several episodes. That's why I have written this book where the name of the airport is a fiction, and but 90% of the story, of the narrative in this book, it's like it's based on the real episodes. I may put the story in different situation, but I try to preserve even the language of all the cyborgs. I made it as close as possible to their real speech. I have a love story here. Whether it is based on real facts, it's a question, but that's not the subject of our today's discussion. But this fiction, the narrative and fictional story, it is like a cement for the real episodes and reality which I saw in the airport. Are there any questions? I do not see any questions, any raised hands. Okay, now I would like to give the floor to Sergiy Tanasov, who was one of the main military consultants who contributed to this book. I think that he is the only reader as of today who read the entire book from the first to last page. First of all, I would like to thank you very much for writing this book. I've read it, and in course of reading I saw all my friends in front of me and they were doing their job again. I won't repeat the content of the book. I think that everybody will see in it what they are prepared to see. I think that they slightly will change their understanding of the future, but I believe this book reflects the real spirit of Ukrainian soldiers and the hearts of Ukrainian soldiers. Thank you very much. I think this is a fascinating event for Ukraine. I think that in general this is a fascinating situation and a fascinating book. I think that this book allows to strengthen trust to people who surround you, who live around you. And on the example of this book, I have hope that in future our mass media and our movie producers will become more frank, more open, more transparent in telling the truth. The heroes, they say quite often that heroes, those who haven't died within first days of battles, then they become beggars. We should prevent this situation. Good evening. I'm happy to see Mr. Loiko once again here. When Mr. Loiko just started publishing his pictures from the Donetsk airport, telling stories, etc. And in my first private communication with him, I mentioned that he was idealizing us a bit, and it seemed to us that we just were doing our everyday job, and not always clean job, but Sergiy told me at that time that you haven't seen you from the outside. The war and the ceasefire continues, and nobody knows what will be in the future. But I believe this is the mainly information war, and unfortunately, as of the moment, we cannot say that we are winning this information war, and if we want to gain a victory, we should not rely just upon the low level of patriotism, just very trivial level. No, we should rely upon high level patriotism, telling the truth about this war and showing people what's going on in reality. I believe that the nature of the media work is to keep with journalist ethics, unlike the journalists from our neighbor country. I do not want to offend you, but some time ago, when we are at the front line, some journalists arrived and they wanted to make a TV story about everyday life of the small town where we are deployed, and they wanted to show the ruins after shellings from the Russian, from the separatist side. I suggested this TV crew to go to the Maryanka village to observe ruins, to see our serviceman who defended Maryanka several days ago, who heroically defended Maryanka 2-3 days 45 days ago, and they showed great courage and defended this village, and the TV crew rejected to go there. They said that the story was a bit old, 45 days, and I felt bitterness about this, and I would like to thank to Sergiy who have shown the stories. Just one small comment. Mykhailo is a very merry man here. And he commented, he said, you know, my ass is shown on the cover. Good evening. I would like to say a couple of words about the book. I haven't read the book as a whole. I read some fragments from it at the preparation stage. And I would suggest you not to read the book as a documentary. It's you should take it as a fiction, but the fiction which reflects the reality. That is what survives that is what will survive in some 50, maybe 100 years, when people will try to understand what was going on during this war. And moreover, this is what we need today. These are the images, these are the characters which show Ukrainian soldiers, personalities of Ukrainian soldiers who act at the front line. Sergiy, will you please describe the action, present a book to a soldier? The idea was not mine. This is the idea of the general producer of the future movie Airport. There are many people involved in the project, and in this room we have the project producer, Mr. Lomsky, Alexei Lomsky. Thanks to him, many things in this book appear to be they are. Victoria Butenko is producer general of the project, and she has launched the initiative Present a Book to a Soldier. And everybody who has come today, you can buy a book and present it to a soldier. And on Saturday and Sunday, these books will go to the soldiers. Please, could you refer to the response which you got from your Russian colleagues? In the context of Russia, could you think you can become persona non grata for the Russian Federation? Well, okay, if they recognize me as persona non grata, I would have not just 1,000 readers, I will have 100 readers. If they arrest me, I will have 1 million readers. And if they kill me, I will become a Nobel Prize winner, probably. It's a joke, of course, but my colleagues from Russia, they believe that patriotism is when you like the official authorities of your country. I love Russia, I love my colleagues, I like my colleagues from Russia, but the Russian Federation is becoming more and more mad today, the more and more totalitarian state. At the end of Soviet period, we believe that it could be purified, but now we see the repetition of the past. And again, this totalitarian approach when you have troika of judges, and we will again observe this farce over Savchenko and over Sentsov. This is the second coming of the great past, so to say. Sergey, I have a question to you. I'm Marina Barnovska from Telecritics publication. It's quite understandable that the Russian journalists actually fight at the front line. There are some journalists who are not journalists who stay at the front line. They can tell to me that I'm not a journalist, but I am a journalist and I'm at the side of truth while they keep lying. And now my second question, whether you have a feeling that the level of truth in Ukrainian society is sufficient on the one hand, and on the other hand, how do you see the work of Ukrainian mass media? It's not a question to me. you in Ukraine have more freedom of speech, more freedom of expression than in Russia, because here in Ukraine I observe a lot of different points of view, unless it comes to that nightmare which we observed the last week when there were physical victims. I was a bit surprised to see that many people in Russia did not know the truth about the airport for a long time, and now they know the truth, and I believe that and Ukrainian society wants to know truth, and if you want to something, you inevitably and eventually will gain this. The Russian society does not want to know the truth. When I speak to people in Russia, I was at the front line at both sides, and they are zombified, and they do not wish to know truth. That's why the journalism in Russia is as it is. For quite a long time, the Russian journalism will recover after this damage, and I believe that finally it will restore. Metro Moroz, Fifth Channel, you mentioned that you visited both sides, Ukrainian side and Donetsk side. Whether Ukrainian people in occupied territories, whether they know the truth, how do you think? Unfortunately, the truth is very much limited in the occupied territories. If they can watch anything, this is Russian TV. They are zombified just like many other Russian citizens. When the bomb comes or shell comes and it targets your house, then it's easy to believe when you are told that this was Ukrainian shell which came from the Ukrainian territory. For example, they blamed the Ukrainian military forces that they shelled Mariupol, which is an absolute nonsense. Of course, the Donetsk residents, they do not know the truth. They understand that they are living in the then Soviet Union, and normal people could not exist in these conditions for a long period of time. STB, Marina Starzenka, could you describe your work on the book, how quickly you have written it, whether it is read by those who were your prototypes? The book was appealing to me from the inside. I had been thinking about it for 9 months, and I was thinking and imagined to myself some dialogues, some situations, and then I sat down at the table and spent 6 weeks at the table writing the book. Then editors stepped in, and they have corrected my wrong Russian language and then translated it into perfect Ukrainian language, and now you can see the product. I mentioned that all the characters, all the military characters of the military, except the main character, because I needed one character. I had to invent this main character, so I took an image of a journalist, and this is the only character which is a product of my imagination from the very beginning to the very end. All the rest characters, they have prototypes. They some characters represent some collective prototypes. One of the main military characters having read the book, you will see, but this very guy is the prisoner of war, and the book was written before he was conquered. Tanasov first read The War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy, but it was difficult for him, so instead of it he has read The Airport. Do you have no questions to our guys? He arrived they arrived specifically for this press conference. Sergey, could you tell your impressions after reading the book? I again experienced this same situation. If you read the book, you will feel in reality the recent events in Ukraine, and reading the book, you will be horrored many times. I have read the book from the very beginning and to the very end. Alexei Lomsky is the project producer for the Eastern Ukraine. Thank you for this opportunity to be next to you when you were writing the book. And those characters whom you brought to life in this book, I think this could be the major source for bringing up children in patriotic attitude. Everybody will forget the Brest fortress. Everybody will forget about Stalingrad, and our children will read this book. I invite you to the lounge, and in several minutes we start our presentation there. Thank you.